All right, wait. Before you click off this video because you saw Bitcoin Cash, hear me out. If you think BCH is dead, irrelevant, or just some failed fork, you're not alone. Most of the crypto community feels this way. But the deeper I went into the charts, the fundamentals, and the history of Bitcoin Cash, the more obsessed I became. And the more I realized this is what Bitcoin was meant to be. Now, in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly why I moved all my capital into Bitcoin Cash and why I believe this is the most undervalued project in crypto. Let's get right into it. So why Bitcoin Cash? Bitcoin Cash is a fork of Bitcoin launched in 2017. It was built to fulfill Satoshi's original vision, peer-to-peer electronic cash. And as you see in the original white paper down here in the bottom right corner of my screen, you can see Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. I don't see a store of value or digital gold or anything like that. The headline is literally a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. With Bitcoin Cash, you're going to have super low fees, usually about a penny or less, and transactions are lightning fast, perfect for daily use and peer-to-peer transactions across the world. There's no central control, no venture capitalists, and there's no pre-money. It's accepted globally and it has real-world usage in stores, restaurants, and online. Bitcoin Cash is focused as being usable money, not just digital gold. Okay, so now let's compare Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash. As you can see with Bitcoin, the current narrative is that it is a long-term store of value. It has a 1 megabyte block size. The fees are anywhere from $5 to $30. It really just depends on the transaction size and the congestion of the network. And of course, transaction can take hours. And like mentioned, if the network is congested, say goodbye. And as we know today, Bitcoin is branded as digital gold. In about 2017, we saw a huge narrative shift from Bitcoin being a peer-to-peer cash system into a store of value or digital gold. And as Roger Ver says, Bitcoin is essentially just speculators speculating on future speculators. And now if we look at Bitcoin Cash, it is essentially usable, spendable peer-to-peer cash. It has a 32 megabyte block size, fees are less than a penny, instant transactions, and its main focus is to hold the peer-to-peer cash originally listed in the white paper. So now I want to show you guys a little bit of the chart side of things, which is personally my passion and what got me into crypto in the first place. So if we look at BCH's chart through Coinbase, this is a monthly view just to give you guys a little bit of context. We can see it's been in this very long accumulation. We could see at launch, of course, there was the euphoria. We had a pump, we had a move back down, and then from there on out, we've just been stuck in a range. And this is what I brand as an accumulation. We just saw XRP's accumulation break out after about 7 years or so. So this is one of the main reasons I'm invested into Bitcoin Cash. I believe the longer an asset tends to stay in a range, usually a more explosive move to the upside will manifest. So another technical reason I'm invested into Bitcoin Cash is through Elliott wave theory, specifically the 5-wave theory. As we can see, point 0 starts here. We have our first wave up here, followed by a retracement. This will be labeled as wave 2. And followed by wave 2 usually comes the most explosive move, either taking out previous cycles highs or even all-time highs, which is what I'm personally expecting for this bull run in 2025. And then followed by wave 3, we usually have a quick retest back to the downside, followed by one more wave up. And if we acknowledge these levels, wave 3 right here is about 4,000 to 5,000 US dollars. And then wave 5 can potentially be $20,000 plus. And I know these numbers sound crazy, but an expression I like to normally use, I used to play basketball growing up, and usually we'd always say ball don't lie. And I personally like to say the charts don't lie. So another reason I am fully invested into Bitcoin Cash is a market comparison from XRP back in 2015 to where Bitcoin Cash is at now. If we look at XRP back in 2015, we can see we were in this about 3 to 4 year accumulation cycle, followed by an explosive breakout to about $3 or so, all the way from under a half a penny. That is over 1,000x return, insane gains. And I personally believe we will see something similar with Bitcoin Cash. So on the right here, I have the Bitcoin Cash market cap chart. I don't see a lot of analysts use this chart, so I use this to my advantage. But if we look side by side, XRP had its initial release. We can see here Bitcoin Cash had its initial release. Followed by that, we had a liquidation of the inception points. We can see here a liquidation of the inception points of Bitcoin Cash, followed by a retracement, you see here on XRP, followed by another retracement here on Bitcoin Cash, a move back down, again, a move back down, and then XRP decided to move sideways until it finally had the explosive move. And this is where Bitcoin Cash differs a little bit, but overall a very similar schematic. We can see here with Bitcoin Cash, it has had a very momentous move in the past year or so. And it almost looks like institutions are packing their bags, getting ready for this explosive move. And of course, if you look at what XRP did after accumulating for this long, I think it gives me all the reason to believe Bitcoin Cash will do the same. And the whole idea is that I'm not just using one reason to go all in on Bitcoin Cash. I'm using a multitude of confluences to make a rational decision and putting myself in the right side of probability. And as I've learned, that is the whole point of trading and investing. So now I'd like to go over the current narrative with Bitcoin Cash. I'm sure most of us have heard of Bitcoin Cash. We're just not really too sure what it is, or we just think overall it's a dead project. There's no development, nobody uses it, and it's a failed Bitcoin fork. But the reality is far from the truth. If we were to look at CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin Cash is in the top 20 of all cryptos in the world. And if we take out stablecoins, it is essentially a top 10 coin. Can you imagine that? A top 10 coin that nobody talks about. To me, Bitcoin Cash has always been diamonds in the rough, and that is why it is my favorite project in all of cryptocurrency. And the reality of Bitcoin Cash, like I said, it's still a top 20 coin. It's used globally for real transactions. It has an active development team, low fees, and fast transaction speeds. And of course, it's most aligned with Satoshi's white paper. All right, so I want to show you guys some real world examples of the narrative and kind of how people react to Bitcoin Cash and compare it to the real world usage of this project. So what I'm about to show you guys here is a video that Elio Trades made himself about a top crypto tier list in 2025. And personally, I was surprised to see Bitcoin Cash on this list. So for me, that's a W. For the community, that's a W. But let's dive into what he's about to say about Bitcoin Cash, and let's see if there's anything good he has to say about it.
Is this needs massive retail return. And certainly actually that's Celestia too, right? But I think it fits better into that was hot might actually not be in the future. Massive, I guess the one that we can put down here is Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash is definitely rest in peace. We don't need Bitcoin Cash to be highly rated. I'm friends, I know Roger Veer, shout out to Roger, he's a nice guy, but Bitcoin Cash is dead. Okay, Cardano,
All right, there you guys heard it. Bitcoin Cash is dead. It's dead. No, don't worry about it. It's dead. A top 10 coin without stablecoins is dead. Don't worry about it. This is a perfect example of the mainstream narrative behind Bitcoin Cash. Nobody gives it attention. Nobody really cares. They just think it's a dead project. But little do they know, behind the scenes, it is building massive momentum and getting ready for an explosive move to the upside. And this is another reason I personally believe Bitcoin Cash is diamonds in the rough. From my experience being in crypto for the last 5 years, I have learned you always have to beat the crowd. My goal is not to become a sheep, but a wolf in the markets, and Bitcoin Cash is the perfect wolf play. So another thing I do want to show you guys is a map of Bitcoin Cash and where it is accepted globally within the world. When I saw this for the first time, I was actually quite astonished. As you guys can see, is currently okay, interesting, Sri Lanka. Well guys, I'm not in Sri Lanka. I'm actually in Bangkok, but we'll just ignore that. But we're gonna zoom out here and we can see throughout across the globe. These are all the places Bitcoin Cash is accepted. I personally thought most of the usage was maybe in Asia or Africa, but as you guys can see, there's plenty of usage within the United States. And of course, Argentina, as we know, is dealing with massive inflation. So they're referring to assets like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash to combat this. And yeah, this is pretty amazing, guys. I definitely recommend you check this chart out for yourself, do some digging. And this is through bitcoin.com. And one last thing I want to show you guys is a real life transaction of Bitcoin Cash in Argentina. And like I mentioned before, who is dealing with massive inflation and is using coins like Bitcoin Cash in order to deal with it. So let's take a look here.
Número que amots y estato que sí da. Ahora.
Perfecto, listo. Listo. Muchas gracias, Zoe.
And just like that, done. And like I mentioned before, I'm out here in Thailand. They use services like Line Pay or Alipay. And essentially it functions the same as BCH. You scan a code and the money is paid. I personally believe Thailand will see massive adoption through BCH. It may even be one of the first places to see massive adoption, but of course, we'll see. And look, guys, I'm not here to convince you to buy Bitcoin Cash. That's really your call, instead of a random hype coin with 1000x potential. And if you're watching this video, it's still early. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this video maybe gave you some new perspectives, something to think about. And maybe when you hear Bitcoin Cash from now on, you'll give it a little bit more thoughts. I'll see you guys in the next one.